Hello and welcome to Mastering the Hustle interview series. I'm your host, Joel Calkins, and today I'm joined by Rick Crabbe, who is the CEO of Portable Consultants. Rick, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Would you like to kick us off with a brief introduction of who you are and a little bit about your business?
Yeah, well, Rick Crabbe, CEO and founder of Portable Consultants. Been in the space, telecommunications, infrastructure, 20 plus years. Currently, a few years into building what I believe will be the next big thing in our space and a big disruptor as it relates to data and voice infrastructure and connectivity to the enterprise business. So, thank you very much for having me on, by the way. Uh,
Yeah,
it'll be good to catch up.
yeah, absolutely. So you talked about voice and connectivity. How did you get into that space? What drew you to it?
Accident, right? Isn't that how
Okay,
all great things happen?
always.
It was interesting. I went to school, got a finance background, hoped to be a stockbroker. Early 2000, market started to crumble right in front of us. I had a baby face, no stockbroker, or I should say, nobody with any money wanted to invest in a baby face at that particular time. And so I do what you do when you have nothing on the radar. You jump on a plane and travel Europe and come back broke, and you find yourself desperate for a job. And that's really what that's kind of what happened to me. And somebody introduced me to this telecom space, and it was 2000, 2001.
Mhm.
I had no interest in it. In fact, it took me years to get even remotely interested in the space because it just wasn't a very attractive space at the time. Phone lines. I'm selling phone lines. I went to college with a finance background. I'm selling phone lines.
So
So
what
that's
did
how I
it?
ended up getting it.
Yeah. So what did it for you? What caused you to go from not wanting to be in the space, kind of reluctantly being there, to something that you really wanted to pursue?
I think it was probably a few years. I had a lot of success right out of the gates, right? So, you know, I'm a big believer that I know everybody says go out, fall in love with what you're doing, and
Hmm.
then the money and time will be easy, right? I have this slight adjustment to that, and I tell this to my kids all the time. I'm like, go out, become really good at something, and watch. You'll fall in love with that, right? And
Hmm.
in a lot of cases, that is really the case, right? I just happen to have a lot of success, and when you have a lot of success, you're like, oh, geez, I'm not so great at a lot of other things. I might as well stick to the things I'm good at. So I had some successes early on, and I think that's what got me going down the path of okay, but if I want to be even better, how do I do that? And then, after some years and technology at the time, I was pretty technology illiterate. Like I knew very little about technology. So I think it was, several years in when I started to take the time to want to learn and to get better, just like you would if you wanted to get better at the gym or anything like that. Then eventually I started going, okay, I really like this stuff. And of course, now fast forward to 2024, and technology I mean, it kind of became cool some years ago, but it's a lot cooler than it was in 2000.
Yeah, 100%. So you've been with Portable Consultants. You started that, it looks like, a little over 3 years ago, almost 4 years now.
Yeah.
What caused you to step out on your own and to start this new thing?
Yeah. So I had spent nearly 20 years in my past life, 15, 20 years, helping build up a company. Some doors, essentially, I mean, really, a handful of doors closed on me, and at the same time, a handful of doors opened for me. And I
Hmm.
found myself in this, why in the road? What do I want to do when I grow up? I have an immense amount of love for a space. I'm sitting here going, um, you know, I'm aware of some big things that need to be changed in this space because I've met with probably thousands of enterprise businesses over the years, and it's pretty amazing how many people want to volunteer what they dislike about certain things, right?
Hmm.
And so I was sitting there going, gosh, I have some great ideas on what could solve some major problems in this space. And why is nobody doing this? And I started peeling back the onion, and it became more and more of, oh, geez, it's been sitting in front of me all these years. All this time, it's been sitting in front of me, and I just haven't taken action on it. So um, I would say that's the way the ball bounced on that one. It was a few doors closed and a bunch more opened, and it's been a handful of years. I it's terrifying to start a business. I mean, it'd be lying if I didn't say that, right? It's a big risk.
Yeah.
Uh,
So there's you've I've meant capped. I guess I've noticed the same thing twice so far, both early on in 2000 and then in the last several years when you started Portable Consultants, which was this life happens and you find yourself having to take a different course.
yeah.
And it sounds like you've leveraged those moments to figure out and how to grow yourself. How did you help yourself get in the mindset to take that, that challenge that was in front of you and decide, I'm going to do something with this and I'm going to go forward? Like, how do you keep yourself just mentally healthy to keep moving forward?
Boy, I don't know if it's just the modern day things that you see on social media or so forth, but what kind of drives me is actually getting uncomfortable. I'm a big fan of the
Mm.
whole, you got to get uncomfortable to progress.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't run in front of a car and get hit by it, but a lot of things that are out there. So
Yeah.
I think for me it was, and I don't know, as I get older, this idea that um, I don't want to go into the ground having any regret. And boy,
Yeah.
there's one thing that I think a lot of folks do is they spend their entire life thinking about doing something, but not actually doing it.
Yeah.
And it's a real regret, I think, at the end of the days. And so I think that's what really has kind of given me the drive to do it. Plus I needed to find a place to make money and to build things up. And for me, the other piece was a little bit of uh, some excitement that some of my old teammates, some folks that I had worked with for a very long time, could be part of this, and the people that I work with that are part of my team actually probably are one of my was probably one of the biggest reasons for opening this door.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. So you mentioned you're looking at the telecom space and you saw some things in front of you that you hadn't noticed before and you started peeling back the layers of the onion. What
yeah,
were those things that you noticed? And then how did you get some confirmation that those were the right things to be pursuing?
yeah. So I say I've had two aha moments in my career, right?
Mhm.
Where you're like, oh, huh. And aha moment number one for me was in my early days in telecom. This is back when DSL and internet and all business B2B is all I've done. So I can't talk
Mhm.
about residential, but aha moment number one, I'm an enterprise salesperson selling voice and internet service to a business that had lots of locations across the US. And the IT manager at the time was a guy by the name of Gary. Gary and I become buddies after, I don't know, 6 months, taking him out to lunch, the drill, the whole sales
Yeah.
thing. And
Yep.
hey, Rick, I got some great news. Come back to the office after lunch today. We can talk about all that business you bid on. Great, Gary. See you there. Go into his office and he pulls out a yellow little file folder. Had my company at the time, was a company I'd worked for, was in sales, had a sticky on it that said 7 LOC. And then he proceeded to pull out file folders of every competitor in the marketplace. At the time it was AT&T, US West, all these companies that have gone, in various directions. And he said, listen, Rick, why can no company come in here and take a look at what I need in each of my locations geographically, package up a hybrid multi-carrier solution, put it on a single invoice under one contract, give me a decent price. I'd buy 100% of my business from them.
Hmm.
And really, that's kind of the premise behind part one of what Portable Consultants does, right? The
Mhm.
enterprise business and telecom providers are in this mismatch of interests. You've got big enterprise I'm sorry, yeah, big carriers. Let's just take, for example, Comcast. They don't have wire into every building out there. So every business building out there or every business out there needs some sort of internet. Comcast really wants that customer that's got wire that they own into the business. They don't want the other stuff. Yet, virtually every enterprise business out there that has lots of locations has to get the other stuff. So here you are, the consumer, the enterprise. What do I do? Right? Do I go out and buy this stuff that Comcast does, probably doesn't want to sell me and doesn't want to manage and piece it all together? Both are kind of a nightmare. So what we're doing, and problem number one that we're solving, is we're saying, hey, listen, what if you can get access to all those carriers and the different technologies, wireless, WIS, and all that, and package it all up? We put it on a single invoice, we support it 24/7 under one contract. It's a huge, huge victory for the enterprise space because it's an easy button. Otherwise, you're going to deal with lots of vendors, right? So then, aha moment number two for me in my career, it came much later, and I was much more experienced, and it was a project I was working on for a a big resort company, and they had hundreds of locations. They had an executive that had um, been asked to give me some data so that I could review and take a look at what their spend and what their environment was like. And I reviewed it, and the data was missing everything important that's important in this world to anybody that has contracts, including their contracts. They didn't have anything. And I started to observe how many enterprise businesses, and we're not talking small enterprise businesses, multi-hundred thousands of enterprise location type size businesses, how they're living on spreadsheets. And these spreadsheets were usually owned by one individual, the IT executive, Johnny. And when Johnny would leave, Johnny never really seemed to make a note that he had an important file folder that everybody in the entire company would want one day. And that data would go orphaned. And so
Yeah.
I started to observe how every few years IT executives and folks would move from one site to the next. And the first darn near year that they spent inside an organization was just trying to figure out what they had.
Right.
And so I thought, boy, there's a way better way to do this. I had dreamt for probably nearly a decade, had notes and little ideas of what I wanted to do to create automation. But the reality was, and visibility for customers. The reality was is that it wasn't until maybe just the last few years ago where technology's evolved enough and platforms have evolved enough that I could create something that I think is going to be just a complete disruptor of the enterprise, the way enterprise businesses consume connectivity and voice services. So those are the two aha moments of what got me to go down the path of being a little disruptive.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you've been going for almost 4 years now, and you mentioned earlier that starting your own business is scary. Walk me through those first couple of years as you're getting going, as you're bringing on clients, as you're starting to figure out, okay, where's our fit in this space?
Yeah.
What were the steps you took? What were some of the lessons you learned along the way?
Oh boy, it was a fire hose of lessons every day. Some days it still is. It's so the early days were really about just. I mean, I often would ask like, how define success? What would you recommend for success, or whatever it is? And success to me is not making one good decision. It's an accumulation of thousands, if not millions, of little right decisions along the way that just accumulate. So for me, it was creating a routine, a daily routine that I knew that if I could stick to this routine every day, that I would have some wins. And so that was the early days, and every day there was some sort of mess that came up, and every single day it was just methodically doing that. Fast forward to today, it's much better seen.
Nice, nice. So that's an interesting note that you have there, which is you do the little things every day, and eventually you'll kind of get there. And I think often we're looking for those big kind of grandiose situations that come up, and usually it's not that. It's the day in, day out work that goes forward. So I think that's a really important thing for people to take from this. So you mentioned a team. As you have been growing this company, tell me a little bit about your team. How do you interact with them? What's working? What are some of the challenges that you've come across?
So fortunately for us, we're a virtual company. Many of us have worked together in some capacity for years or even in past lives years. So
Mhm.
my team is they're amazing. And what I mean by that is, I always say I can teach technology, I can teach just about anything, but I can't teach integrity, I can't teach work ethic.
Mhm.
And if you find the right folks that have both of those, it's just amazing the amount of output that you can get. So the amount of output that my team produces in comparison to what I've seen in my life in this space has been just
Mm.
amazing. And what's great about it is watching them progress from thinking maybe they could only be really good at one thing to find out no, you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined. You just needed somebody to give you the right opportunity. And
Yeah.
guess what? Today's your lucky day. And then you turn out to be the most amazing at something nobody even knew.
Oh, that's incredible. Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Um, so in the telecom space, I imagine it's ever changing. What are some of the
Yeah.
challenges that you see coming just around the horizon?
um, so the big changes if I were, from my perspective, the big changes I would suspect going around is that, well, here's some stats for you in the telecom space. Here's some fun, like food for thought. There are over 7,500 ISPs in the United States, right? That's a lot for just the US. We service customers domestically and internationally in just about every country around the globe. So you start doing the multiplier. Over 50% of the enterprise commercial buildings in the US have no fiber in
Hmm.
them. That's a problem, right? You go to South Korea, 99%, probably even greater than that, a little bit more, all have fiber into it, right? And fiber is what? It is the source to communicate to the outside world. And
Yeah.
so, to your question, technology is definitely changing. You've got low orbiting satellite type solutions, you've got wireless solutions, you've got wireline solutions. What I see being the biggest changes that are taking place is a lot more software integration with what used to be traditional telecom
Yeah.
solutions, right? You're seeing this with SD-WAN solutions where you take two internet connections. I got carrier A and carrier B. I put it into one device, and that device is smart enough to give me the best option in and out. And so the end user's experience is getting enhanced. Um, the other big and exciting things I think you're going to see in our space is a lot more AI
Mhm.
and being leveraged to enhance customers' buying experience and buy it just overall. I mean, it's it's a dinosaur under the hood in telecom right now
Yeah.
for most traditional telecoms.
Yeah. So do you see yourself kind of playing into that space and kind of leading the way, or okay,
Yeah.
tell me more about that.
Well, I can't tell you all the secret sauce
Sure,
out
of
there. I'm
course.
sure there's lots of folks that would be very, very curious, but it's you know, our goal, we are a sales driven organization. And what I mean by that is a customer facing sales organization. And we listen to our customers and
Mm.
we build around what our customers desire because who knows their customer better than themselves, right? And
Yeah.
so, um, we've built some automation and a platform and a portal that is really going to take things to a whole new level as it relates to the customer's experience to solve some of those problems I mentioned earlier with the aha moments and the simplicity that doesn't exist today. This idea that, hey, I've got 5 new locations coming up, and I go to Google today to actually identify who I'm going to buy those from, and then I got to go through this whole onboarding process with my legal team to deal with a master service agreement for each of these carriers and the accounts payable support. blah, 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 blah. That is going to the wayside, in my opinion. So that's going to be a big change. One of the big other changes is somebody that, so we're a reseller of data and voice services. We take advantage of the best carrier options out there. On average, for every 100 locations a customer has with us, they're going to average 27 different carrier networks to get the right solution. And nobody wants to deal with 27 different carriers. That sounds like, and do that if you've got 1,000 sites, you're at what, 270 different carriers.
Right.
That's
Right.
asinine. So as we simplify that space and take things into the next the next generation, I think some of the big changes that I suspect will happen, and I think we're leaving the forefront of, is traditionally resellers like us have been facilities based. And facility based, I think of as far back as the MCI days, right? So MCI was this non-facilities based reseller. And then what did they do? They hauled off and they're like, oh, hey, if we bring services back to us and send it out our network, we make more money. And that's the way telecom has always worked. There are tons of resellers out there that bring services back to their network, increases margins, but they lose a lot of control. The increased ticket, there's a lot of trade-offs that go with that. We are planning to remain a non-facilities based reseller and leverage technology in 2024 and the last few years to do what nobody else is doing. So that's a big change I think you're going to probably see, not only from us, but I imagine we have competitors out there that are thinking right along the same paths. I don't want to sit and put infrastructure in every city that I operate in.
Yeah.
I don't need to. Technology's past that point.
Yeah.
And spin it up.
Oh, that's great. Rick, this has been such a good conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Truly do appreciate it. Again, I've been speaking with Rick Crabbe of Portable Consultants. I look forward to seeing where you take this in the future. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course.